Welcome to Education in Focus. I'm your host, Eliana Kernodle. A former paraprofessional is suing the Washoe County School District in Nevada over claims that the system shuffles dangerous students between schools without adequately alerting staff about their behavior and terminated him in retaliation. Joining me to dig into this is Chalkboard News editor Brendan Clary. Brendan, what does this lawsuit lay out?
Yeah, so basically a paraprofessional, as you mentioned, Mr. James Benthin, was employed by Washoe County School District and worked in the special education department at Desert Skies Middle School, and basically says that a student known only as NL, minor student, was transferred from Turning Point to Desert Skies. And Turning Point is, in the lawsuit, described as a self-contained program within Washoe County School District that helps individual special needs children who have demonstrated significant behavioral regression in the least restrictive environment. Basically, if students are having a hard time in a middle school or a high school, that is an appropriate place for them. And then basically the lawsuit alleges that the student had dangerous propensities and was put into that program because of those, quote, violent, destructive, and abusive behaviors towards, quote, staff, students, and property. And again, this is the language directly from the lawsuit regarding Turning Point and also some of the stuff. So I'm going to be quoting directly from a lot of this. And essentially, the lawsuit painted a picture about how this student was dangerous, was at this other program, and then was moved back to Desert Skies Middle School, and that he was transferred. And then the staff there, the staff who would be in his care, were then notified about some of the paperwork, essentially, of this is his background. And that was made after he had been transferred back to the middle school. And so then Mr. Benthin is in a special education classroom working as a teacher's assistant. There's some other students there. And as the lawsuit lays it out, and this is alleged because the court has not weighed in and said, these are the facts, this is what happened. This is one side of the argument, essentially. And so we're very careful to say, this is according to the document. This is according to the lawsuit. And you can say a lot of stuff in a lawsuit, and we have no reason to disbelieve it, but we do have to say this is what's coming directly from this court document, and we haven't heard the school's side yet because this was just filed last week. But essentially, the student who's identified as NL apparently allegedly came in and started saying nasty things to another student, was starting to get threatening and sort of violent behavior. And then Mr. Benthin stepped in, and then the student first started to push the teacher and then grabbed him around the throat, and he put him in a chokehold. And eventually both the teacher and the student, Mr. Benthin and the student, were on the floor. And then at one point he was hit with a backpack, and that knocked Benthin unconscious, the lawsuit alleges, and that he also had a broken nose, right? So he had a concussion, he was unconscious, had a broken nose, and then the student ran out of the classroom. And then about 15 minutes later, the lawsuit says the student was outside the classroom and broke the window open with a rock, quote, as big as a grapefruit, and then climbed into the classroom yelling profanity and racial slurs, and then picked up a chair and then threw it at Mr. Benthin again. And so then it hit the desk, shattering glass, and that flew into, again, the corner of the lawsuit flew into Benthin's face and body, and then the student ran off campus. And so then, this is kind of the blow by blow, this is the playback, and it doesn't hold back. It says, here's what happened. Then after that, I'll spare some of the details, but essentially administrators wanted to talk about it and go over what Benthin could have done better. The lawsuit alleges basically that he should not have tried to restrain the student in any way. And then he was not sent home that day, the lawsuit alleges. And also that when he was in the hospital, so I think eventually went to an urgent care sort of facility. And then they said, you need to go to the emergency room. You have a concussion, you have a broken nose, you need to seek medical treatment. And then he had to spend more time recuperating. And he alleges that administrators basically said that he was away and was not there to perform his essential duties. So he was fired. So that's the long and short of it. It's quite a large document in terms of what it alleges all the way through. But that, it kind of gets really into some of the particulars there. and I think offers, a look at what some of these paraprofessionals are dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
And this event, he's not portraying it as just kind of a one-off. It's more indicative of a pattern, according to him.
Yeah, according to the lawsuit. So that's one thing that Benthin points out is he said that the superintendent of Washoe County School District or its subordinates, quote, had a custom pattern, practice, and or procedure of transferring dangerous students to different schools without informing the administration, teachers, and or staff at said school. And then, it goes on to say that when these dangerous students would inevitably commit violent acts against unoffending students, teachers, and or staff, the superintendent would ratify these acts by either failing to discipline the students pursuant to the Student Behavior Administrative Procedures Manual, basically the policy, or the superintendent would assist in covering up these violent acts by either allowing the student to remain in the same school with the students, teachers, and or staff that were harmed, or transferring the student to yet another school within WCSD. So again, this is from the lawsuit. So it's alleging that this is not just a one-off, that this is a pattern, and that in order to, maybe make the numbers look good, like the suspension numbers look good, or otherwise to hide these kinds of things, that dangerous students are being shuffled from school to school without notifying staff who are going to be watching over them and trying to protect other students about these dangerous kids. And so I do think that there is, a lot to be said here about how do you best handle very disruptive kids or kids with maybe behavioral issues, and what are the root causes there, and how do you address that? But I think that most people can say if you have students who are this violent, that they're attacking other students and teachers and putting them in the hospital, that that you can't have a learning environment with that going on, I think. So I think, there's a lot of different stuff at play here, and we'll have to see, what the court says.
And have we heard anything from the school district yet?
No, they didn't comment on this because it's pending litigation. That's fairly standard practice, but I reached out to them and they said that they couldn't offer any insights at this time. So I think, what we can do is wait until they file a response, in the court of law, and just see what their arguments are. And it'll be interesting to kind of hear what their side of the story is in terms of their legal arguments, right? Even if they don't have any contention with the facts of the case, usually, there's some kind of legal arguments, even if it's just immunity, as government officials, we're not liable for what happened here because it was an interpersonal thing. But it's one of these cases that is very difficult to read because of some of the details, and, does really allow us to get into that classroom and see, what was going on according to Benthin's side of the story.
Well, Brendan, thank you for your insights on this story. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at chalkboardnews.com.